All good.
Okay. So, hi Denise, nice to see you. So some of these are very new to me, and you're all incredibly welcome. And some of you are old faces, and you're also incredibly welcome. So tonight is basically night one of 3 nights together. Um, and it seems like a long time together. So 3 full nights. I will do my best to keep these nights as short as possible, but such is the depth of the material that I want to deliver. I can't promise that we'll be out of here in an hour. What I can promise is that the recording, should you need to leave, will be available afterwards. Is that okay? So should anybody, if we don't finish on the hour, should you need to leave, then that is perfectly okay. I understand people have busy lives. When I get into the detail of this, there is no stopping me. I will apologise in advance. What you will see is very flushed face. I'll get redder by the evening because I get more passionate as we go. I tend to talk quicker and faster, and if that happens, just tell me to slow down, right? Especially with this Donegal Irish accent, can get very fast, very quick. And we have some lovely people from Canada and America with us. So if I get too fast, then do not be afraid to tell me in the chat to slow down. So we will jump straight in. We've a lot to do, and we will jump straight in to what we're about to do. And what we're about to do tonight and for the 2 nights after, 3 nights, we're about to talk about how can we heal anxiety. I'm very, very explicit about that. I'm not talking about managing it. I'm very explicitly talking about healing it. What does that mean? What does it mean to heal anxiety? I want to talk about that in great detail tonight. And what is the differentiation between healing anxiety and managing anxiety? I want to talk about that too. But before we get into the detail of that, I want to be very clear about my intentionality. My intentionality with you all is to show you a framework, a system that you can understand so that you can take that system and that framework and apply it to your clients. In fact, what I hope for you throughout the 3 nights is that you take your clients' information. I'll be encouraging you to do that and put it through the things that I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you an assessment, and then I am going to show you a system with interventions in that system. And we're going to have a case study, and we're going to take that case study through that assessment and intervention plan. And I'll be encouraging you to do that with your own client base as well. Is that okay? So that's my promise. It's my intention. That is my heartfelt promise over the next 3 days to do that, to show you that. And my promise is also to show you how we can actually eliminate anxiety, how we can eliminate anxiety and panic. When we talk about eliminating anxiety and panic, what we're not talking about here is just regulating it. So using the regulation techniques and tools that we've all been taught as trauma-informed practitioners, what we're talking about is we're talking about a system that actually finds and heals root cause. And that's what we're healing. We're healing the root cause of the threat in the client's nervous system that's continually threatening them. And that's our directionality, that's our intentionality, and that is this framework, and it's built into the science. So there's going to be a lot of scientific words tonight. I will use a word, I'll use phenomenology and I'll use interception. And we're going to weave those 2 words into everything that we talk about, and I'll explain it as we go. I'm going to try and back up and back away from all of the trauma informed words so that this doesn't become too laden with jargon. This doesn't become too clinical. I'm going to try and make this as relatable clinically as possible through storytelling. Is that fair enough? Everybody okay? But the directionality of this is finding and healing root cause so that your client is free from anxiety. Are they free from their nervous system? No. Their nervous system's still intact, and if they walk down a street and they get shocked, is their nervous system still going to go off? Yes, that's what we want. We don't want them separated from their nervous system. We want them in a loved experience of their nervous system. But we do not want these, what we call key and core threats, constantly triggering. That is my directionality over the next 3 days. I know a lot of you are already thinking it's not possible. I know already a lot of you are thinking, oh my God, show me how, because I have some of this going on myself, and show me the way and show me how to switch this stuff off. I know some of you are going to feel very skeptical about this, and that is okay. And I hope that the system will alleviate some of that skepticism. And so what is the proof of this? The proof of this is in the probably now thousands of clinical hours that myself and our team have under their belts in helping people with anxiety. Eliminate and find and heal root cause. I'm going to show you tonight actually a snippet of a session that has been allowed to be recorded, where the client is explaining the advances that they have made, and I'll show you that tonight. But I also want to speak a little bit about my own journey. Anybody that has come here, I would imagine, has done their due diligence on me. They won't spend 3 hours with me or 4 hours with me over the next few days if they think they're coming to a clown show. They will not. Of course you will not. You're all professionals. So if you've done your due diligence, you will know that I have a loved experience of trauma and its transformation, insofar that I have had a lot of ACEs as a child and have managed to transform the energy of that, the limbic energy of that, and have developed a model called the NCORE model that I present to you tonight. I also am in the middle of a PhD that speaks about the phenomenological interceptive understanding of trauma, which is what I'm going to present with you tonight. And so there's a lot of proof here that we have clinically, a lot of evidence that we have clinically, not just in me, but in our practitioners who are actually working in this clinically. So all of that to say, we're going to get started, right? All of that to say, it has its foundations in science. I haven't just woke up this morning and thought I'll do a 3-day masterclass. I am a practitioner by trade as well, in that I have 20 years clinical experience as a person-centered. My foundational practice is person-centered psychotherapy. We have a teaching academy where we teach this stuff to people. So this is not my first rodeo. I have thousands of hours of clinical practice. Why do I say all of this? For an Irish person to say all of this is really awkward, can I just say, because you feel like you're tooting your own horn, and we don't like to toot our own horns. But I think it's really, really important as you come to share your time with me, to know the validity of the information that I give you, to know that the evidence for this exists in people's loved experience of trauma and its transformation. So if we've any questions, can we put them in the chat at this point? Anybody want to ask me anything personally about myself, or anything you want to know, put them in the chat. We have Leona with us, and Leona is going to help me out. You'll see her interacting with you in the chat. I'm going to be sharing some documents with you. I'm going to be sharing a case study with you. So all of this stuff we hope to move through pretty quickly. I have some notes here as well, so I'm going to refer to my notes if I remember, and if I get lost I'll have to come back to my notes, which is quite normal because I often go off in tangents. Anybody that has been with me in these workshops know rightly where I can go. So let us begin with a metaphor. I think it's probably the first place the anchor is and what we're trying to achieve here. So when we talk about understanding our intentionality here, it's best for me to help you think about a personal trainer. So everybody at some point, I'm sure, here has had a personal trainer. And that personal trainer gets a phone call from a client, a prospective client. And that prospective client said, listen, I want to hire you. I want to hear you're the best in the business. I want to hire you, and I want to hire you for a specific role. I want to run a marathon. The personal trainer says, fantastic. Okay, when do we get started? We get started tomorrow. When is the marathon? Well, the marathon happens to be in 6 weeks. Now we have a problem. We have a willingness and a capacity problem. Because where is that client's starting point? If that client's starting point is the couch, they are not getting absolutely in no amount of training would get them in 6 weeks ready for a marathon without severe injury. And that is what's happening in the world of treatment of anxiety and panic. There is no measurement of capacity. There is a measurement of willingness because the client shows up, the client is ready, the client is eager, the client wants to do the work. It certainly don't want to live with anxiety anymore. There is certainly an eagerness. There's certainly a willingness. They're paying their money. They've signed up for classes. They've signed up for working with you. They're showing up. They're not showing up. Most of them anyway will not show up because they have a problem. But willingness and capacity are two different things. And what I want you to walk away from tonight is an understanding of their capacity. Because if you understand their capacity, it will inform your interventions. Does that make sense? If you understand their capacities inside a particular framework, it's a 4-point framework, you will understand. You will understand where to take them, what to do, what's your next move. So what I'm going to show you tonight is I'm going to show you the 4 basic principles that will form an assessment for your clients, and you will know exactly, therefore, what needs done in what order. Once you've this assessment done, once you understand this assessment, then what you can do then is you can pick off the interventions that are needed in line with the client. Rather than having this toolkit that you apply to the client, what you do is assess the client and then pick a set of interventions that fit that client's framework. Let me know in the chat if that makes sense, if that sounds good. And actually tell me, is that something that you would like before you spend the next hour with me? God forbid, I wouldn't want you hanging around and not getting anything out of it. Tell me, yes, good, Sarah, good. I'm glad. That's going to be very helpful. Let me know, yes, good, all right. That seems like something that's going to be good for you. Good, okay, brilliant. All right, so I'm not wasting your time then. That'll be important. Good. Yeah. So any of the big questions around Encore, I will explain in a while. I'm anxious to get started, and I'll try and weave, Lucille, some of that Encore stuff through this so that we're not getting derailed a bit. But I've seen your question and I'll answer it. No problem, Sharon, if you have to leave early. That is no problem. Okay, so what are the 4 principles? So here's what we're going to do first. We're going to look at the 4 principles. Now, these 4 principles are a bit of a mouthful, but I promise you, I'll give you the 4 principles, and then I'm going to talk to each principle, and then we're going to talk about a case study that fits those 4 principles. Everybody happy enough? So I'm going to give you the framework first, and then we're going to dive in. So you're going to have lots of questions about these principles. So the first principle is the principle of the stage of process. Any of my person-centered psychotherapists will be rolling their eyes, but I will tell you why it's so important for the treatment of anxiety and panic. So the first principle is the assessment of, or the understanding of, the stage of process. The second principle is the capacity for root cause. Note I said capacity. Yeah, capacity for root cause. The third principle is the capacity for symptomatology. Symptomatology. The interoceptive symptomatology of anxiety and panic. I'll get into the weeds in that in a wee minute. That is the third principle. And the fourth principle, capacity for root cause, yeah. That is the capacity for, so first, I'll go through it again. The first is stage of process. Second is capacity for root cause. Third is capacity for symptomatology. Fourth is the capacity for interoception. All facets of interoception. Okay? Now I'm going to show you these in a diamond model now in a wee minute, but I just want to lay the foundations. Okay? So let me just very quickly introduce what each one is, and then I'll show it to you in a visual reference, and then we'll come back to a deep dive. Everybody happy enough? Everybody following along? I'm not too quick, am I? I'm okay? All right. Okay. So when we talk about stages of process, what we're really asking here is, what is the client's capacity for the problem? Good, Sarah. Big words, but we're okay. Good, Sarah. Good. That's the clinical side. I promise you, right? I'll weave this on the story. I'll weave this on the client-led story. Okay. What is the client's capacity for the problem? That's fundamentally what stages of process have ever been about. What is the client's capacity for the identification of the problem that they are facing? Does that make sense to you? And can you see how that's a real difficulty? First up, if your client's capacity for the problem at hand is weak, then what is going to happen there is you're going to spend hours and years in story. Second, capacity for root cause. What is your client's capacity to be with the real experience, the real reason that their nervous system is sending warning signals? That is often, there's the gap between how they present and where they need to be is as big as the gap between me and Australia. And it's not understood, it's not assessed, it's not taken into consideration. The capacity for symptomatology. What is their capacity for their own bodily symptoms? Their own internalized experience of hyperarousal. How much capacity do they have to be with these symptoms? And where does that incapacity come from? Because if we're talking about anxiety and panic, we're probably talking about a lived experience over a prolonged time with some very, very, very difficult symptoms in the body. So what is their capacity for that? We have to measure that. And the fourth is their capacity for interoception. This is the one that's missed the most. The capacity for interoception helps the capacity for root cause, helps the capacity for the stage of process. These are all interlinked. They all speak to each other like you would not believe. And they're like like the game of Jenga. You know Jenga, when you pull the bottom brick and the whole thing collapses? That's what we're going for here. We're going for a game of Jenga. We need to know what order this is in, and we need to know what order we're pulling the bottom block so we can collapse the thing in an order that is safe and doesn't re-traumatize. So if I've said and partly just introduced you to the four principles, can I now show you a visual reference of that? And then we'll get into each one. Does that feel okay, Dees? Is everybody with me? Right. Okay, good, good. Just so you know, I have Heather, Teresa O'Sullivan, Jill Grace, Shelley Honeychurch, I'll not say you're my favourite Shelley, but you might be, and all in front of me, right? And so if you can't see the visuals, or if you can't hear me, or if you want me to slow down, I'm watching the chat as well, but I'm watching, these are like my front rowers. So if there's anything goes down, will you let me know? Will you? You just, okay, perfect. So let me show you this in a visual form, and we'll talk about this in a visual form and see where we go. So let me just call up the model. There we go. Okay. Now, can everybody see that? Everybody see that? Yeah, good. You want me to make it bigger, Joe? Is he squinting? Yeah, you all right? You know glasses on you? Okay, I'll try and make it bigger as we go, right? And I'll show you that. So this is what we have here. So most clients come in here at the presentation of threat, and there's a therapeutic exchange about what that presentation of threat is. Is everybody happy enough where we are? We start here. Everybody has clients. Every client comes in and says, this is my problem. This is my trigger. These are the people that are annoying me. This is the things that are hurting me. This is the story. Everybody happy enough? So that's this for now. The presentation of threat in the client, this therapeutic exchange, will naturally have within it the first assessment piece, stage of process. Just by even being in therapeutic exchange, you will have enough information on what your client's stage of process is. So clients normally show up in therapeutic exchange talking about people, places, and things, if you're lucky, right? And we'll talk about that in more detail. But they normally show up here if we're talking about anxiety and panic, talking about the people that make them anxious, the things that make them panic, the things that they can't tolerate. They normally come here with a lot of narrative, a lot of story, depending on their stage of process. So you can tell right away if somebody has a deep stage of process, because they don't talk about people, places, and things. They talk about something deeper. They talk about experiences within them as opposed to on the outside of them. And that's a very important assessment, because that gives you a clarity right away about where you are. Now, if that presentation of the threat is intolerable in its symptoms and its triggers, or intolerable in terms of deepening, then you will get the client who will bounce around the top of this triangle. They will be afraid of the symptoms. They will be intolerant of any triggers, any core key threats, and you will get what we call this bouncing effect, where they bounce from the presentation of the threat into the symptoms, into the intolerance, trying to run away from it, into their defenses, wanting you just to regulate it as quick as you can, wanting you to move it as quick as you can, with no capacity for depth. Does that make sense? Do you see that in your practice? Right? So what we're looking at here is we're looking at two, basically, of the assessment tools. What is their capacity? What's their capacity for the threat itself? And what's their capacity for the symptomatology? Often, a client who shows up firstly and has no previous therapeutic process will bounce around this top of this triangle for years, exhausting themselves, exhausting you, because you can't do anything with a client who's intolerant of their symptoms, intolerant of their triggers, intolerant of their. We have to build a foundation to help them move to a deeper understanding of themselves. And so what happens is, when we build that foundation at the top, what we get is this presentation of threat can deepen to the key and core threats. But the client has to have so much capacity built up in interoception, in stages of awareness, in capacity for symptom, and in capacity for understanding where they're going, to be able to do that. And the biggest problem that we're facing in the field is that the expectation that the client can begin the therapeutic exchange and deepen is not understood. The expectation, and the client has the same expectation, guys, so you're not alone in that expectation. The client has the same expectation. The client wants to present and wants you to either directly heal it, just have regulation techniques that'll take this away quickly, which it never does. It dampens the fire, but it doesn't take away the threat. Absolutely does not take away the threat and puts the client in a worse place, because now it's whack-a-mole business. Now the client will come back with a different presentation of threat in a different form, therapeutic exchange. It's constantly circling that top. So this is how it shows up therapeutically, but the 4 types of assessments are what I've gone through with you. Does any of that make sense to you? Does that feel like it fits your client presentation? Does it feel like it fits your experience? Good. Okay, so let's begin. Let's begin the assessment process. Didn't I tell you about the redness? Ah, I'm getting redder by the day. What do you see? I'll be purple by the next half an hour. Okay, so let's look at stages of process. What is your client? And you can let me know in the chat, right? Think about a client that you have. Think about a client who's presenting with anxiety or panic at the moment. I want you to think about that client in your own head, and I want you to think about what I'm talking about through that client's lens, so that you're not just listening to information from me, so that you're really thinking about your client base and thinking about how this assessment will serve them. Really sneeze. Excuse me. Sorry. So when we look at the stages of process, when a client arrives, if we look at the stages of process 1 through 7, I'm going to quickly run through this so that we don't get hung up on it. But stage 1 through 7 is really about levels of embodiment, levels of capacity to be in the body. What is it to be in the body? If you're in your body, you're aware of the problem that is alivened within you. Does that make sense? It's not a problem that exists externally, but it's a problem that exists internally. Interestingly, that's a stage 4 processor. Stage 1 to 3 have massive difficulty with naming the problem within them. So if you have someone who's presenting with anxiety, think about your client, and they're a low-level processor, they're 1 through 3, people, places, things gone wrong created this, he did this, created that, she did that, created this, I wouldn't have this without them, this is what happened to me, this is why I don't like that person, this is why I want to get away from that situation. How many of your clients externalize their anxiety? Just put a Y in the chat for me. How many of your clients are lower? Yeah. How many of your clients are lower stage of process and externalize their anxiety? There's your first assessment. So what that means is a lot of these are probably working with lower level process clients. They don't have the capacities to be in their own body, to be in awareness of the problem deeper than it presents outside. Does that make sense? So if you've got low-level processors, there's a body of work to do here, guys, to move them out of the identification of the threat outside themselves and to move them towards themselves so that we can begin to really understand what is wounding them, what is... Now, low-level processors, 1 through 3, right? Possibly 4, but 1 through 3, storytell, cycle, project, protect. So they want solutions. Tell me if this is making sense for you. They want solutions. They want you to give them solutions to this, and they want solutions in the now. They want solutions with a problem that they have identified. That is exhausting for you as the therapist, because you know it's deeper. It's not that you don't know it's deeper. That's no surprise that it's deeper. We all know it's deeper. You know? The client doesn't know it's deeper. And when you try to without understanding the stage of process, deepen them into something that's deeper, and they don't have capacity, they're going to shut you out and stay up above that triangle. Right? And they're going to continually identify the problem outside themselves, because for so many issues, and a lot of people will talk about resistance here, or not willing to change, or secondary gain, or some of those psychological terms that really mean that a client wants to hold on to their problems. I am sorry, but that is BS. That is a load of rubbish, and I'll tell you why. If the client could, they would, because there's nobody that wants to hold anxiety. There's nobody that wants to be threatened. And it's kind of a lazy interpretation of what the problem is, rather than working with what the problem is. This is a capacity problem. There's willingness here, otherwise they wouldn't be parting with their money. There's desire here, otherwise they wouldn't be in front of you. I'm just sticking up for the clients. Do you see my angle? Always sticking up for the person that's hurt, always. As a therapist, always sticking up for the person that's hurt, because I was here. I understand this, right? I understand this clinically. I understand this experientially. This is no walk in the park. So stages of process and the assessment of stages of process are important. If you're in the lower ends of those stages of process, there's a lot of embodiment work, awareness work in the self to do. Not in root cause, guys, that's different. Embodiment work and awareness work in self is not the same as root cause. That's different work. So we build and I'll show you these interventions I'll show you what that work looks like in the coming days, right? But we want to build a level of awareness. We want to build a level of embodiment that takes the problem from the external to the internal, which is stage 47. How many of you are working with 47s? Let me know in the chat. You're working with some of them, Joe, but you still are getting that traction. Brilliant. Yes, Shelley, you are. Brilliant. Okay. So when we have a deeper stage of process, sometimes that can be harder as well, because you have awareness of what it is, but you can't actually access it because your interoceptive capacities aren't in alignment. We'll talk about that in a minute. So you can't really get to root cause, even though there's a more of a capacity in the body, because capacity in the body doesn't mean that you have direct access to root cause. And I see both Joe and Shelley nodding, because you know that to be true. And levels of embodiment don't mean direct access to key and core threats. And we'll understand that now in a wee minute. We'll understand why that is. So is everybody happy enough that they have some overall understanding and we'll deepen this, right? Of why stages and process are so important, because it gives you an idea of where your client is, so that you don't push them too far, expect too much of them, expect them to deepen when they can't, expect them to talk about stuff that they can't, and know that there's a body of work here that has to be done before we can do anything else. Everybody happy? In either upper ends or lower ends. Everybody happy at that? Can we move on to the second one? Good, okay. And this is where the second one is really important, and really important for your higher stages of process, guys, right? When we talk about capacity of root cause, what is the root cause? What is the threat? What is it that creates the neuroception to become alive? What is it that creates the perception to warn us of threats? What is it that warns the body, the interoception? What is it that signals to the proprioception that you're not safe? What is it that signals, what is all of those data points that signal to the autonomic nervous system to trigger and to hyperarousal? I did promise I wouldn't use too many trauma-informed words, but I'm hoping that you're moving with me in that. What is it about all of those things that trigger that nervous system? And it is the warning. Now I could do 3 days in this one point, right? This is where I'll lose my mind now, right? It is the warning that that person is close to what we call a key or core threat in the system. What is a key and core threat? A key threat usually comes from a key experience that is a totality of internalized experience that is not tolerable to the adult. Cut short, what does that mean? Something that they cannot tolerate to re-experience. They can be conscious of that or unconscious of that. It doesn't matter. The nervous system will warn anyway. So we all have these key and core threats, these things that are intolerable. Let me give you an example of what mine was. My key threats were the experience, the intolerable experience of high stakes drama that could not be controlled. The experience of a nothingness that was so deep and heavy that as a teenager I couldn't get out of my bed. These experiences in life where we've had such a multifaceted, multi-experiential understanding of our inner worlds, and we're often alone and not co-regulated, not soothed in that. And we have an internalized experience of the nervous system of multiple feelings, multiple, if it's pre-verbal, language patterns, somatic patterns, physical patterns, and defense mechanisms, all in a totality of experience. They become these things that we are intolerant of. We might not have them in our available memory. We might not even have them autobiographically, but we move them out of our conscious mind into our unconscious to be able to cope with life. And what happens is the nervous system is warning about that. Now, why did I say that I would close to losing my mind about that topic? Because if I hear one other person on the internet say, you've got a faulty nervous system, I'm going to send cease and desist letters. You don't have a faulty nervous system. It's warning you about something. We're not crazy. We're not mad. We're highly sensitive human beings that maybe aren't consciously aware that these threats exist in our system. And these situations are warning this perfectly formed nervous system that you're close to something that's intolerable to you. And every time, if I had a point in practice for every time I teach, well, in teaching this to our students, and they relay stories about clients who say it's just a limbic nervous system, or it's just an old reptile nervous system, or I'm just stuck in a fight or flight response. If only it was that easy. If it was that easy, then we'd all have moved through those fight or flight responses. Believe me. And so let's start having a better respect for the people in front of us who are enlivened with these threats, and sometimes more than one. Now, what that is key, what is core? Core is the existential nature of the key. What does that mean? If and I give you some of my story, if I had experienced these high drama, in alcoholism, end of the world experiences, then my nervous system as a child felt that this was too big, too much, too great for me, and hypoarousal would ensue, including panic. Now my experience of hypoarousal and panic unregulated, without co-regulation, feels like a non-survival, feels like I could die. So now the survival is not about the situation, it's about my internal world. Now I don't know if I'll survive me. I'm already not surviving the world, but now I think I'll not survive me, because as a young, small child, I did not know what all of this material was in me. And there was nobody co-regulating that, explaining that, helping me with that. And I am a very interoceptively sensitive person, so I felt this with an intensity. And so that became existential to me, which means life-threatening. How many of your clients have key and core threats that they have no idea what they have? They're unavailable to their conscious awareness, but they're coming out in panic every weekend or every time, because they're triggered by something. It's like chasing ghosts. It's petrifying for people. And they're fighting this every single day. And it's not fair. And the information that's in the field is incomplete. It's not rubbish. Everything that you've learned is perfect and it comes together in a form. So what you've ever learned about panic and anxiety, bring with you. But we're just adding to it. We're completing the circle, if you like. We're completing the practice. Does that make sense? Thank you, Sarah. I'm passionate about it because it was the foundation of my experience as a child. You know, and nobody should live as an adult re-experiencing the terror of a child and not knowing why. Nobody should live as an adult in the re-experiencing of some of the horrific things that have happened, or maybe not horrific, but overwhelming things that have happened and not understand why. So my question to you is, what is your client's capacity in awareness, so mind awareness, and embodiment for those key and core threats? Most clients will have zero capacity for that because they're fighting the fires in the now with the boss and the husband and the people and the places and the bills and that is creating this terror in them, and that's enough. So to go from that deepening into key and core threats, can you see the problem that we have? Can you see why the client wouldn't be able? Can you answer me in the chat? How many of your clients have capacity to both embody, which means re-experience those key and core threats as they were, and to understand them in awareness in their mind? How many of your clients? What percentage of them? Beautiful. 1 out of 7. Yes, yes, yes. 1 out of 7. I mean, that's indicative. None of yours, Sarah. Yeah. Only those who've done a ton of work first. None. 2 out of 10. Yes. Yes. So therefore, some of the interventions that we have been taught don't fit. If there's an incapacity problem, to be in root cause, to be in the body, then some of the questions that we have, some of the deepening, I call them deepening questions, some of the deepening questions that we would have for a client, where do you remember that first? Tell me about what that reminds you of, is like a hot potato. So it might give you a peek of it, but they'll run a mile. And they're not running because they're afraid of change. They're running because this is an experience that has to be walked to. And if you do this in the right order, I can tell you the client will take you by the hand and walk you to it. You will follow in their footsteps. You will be right behind them, but they will have capacity to walk you to root cause. What happens here if we don't have capacity for root cause is we get people moving back up and into panic. And someone said that. Symptomatology is triggered. And then you get this fear of the symptomatology, which means they will never deepen down below that triangle. And you get this bouncing back up and the story, wanting regulation, wanting resourcing, and really it's like, you know, metaphorically, it's like Pandora's box that's eking light or eking darkness, and you don't want to go by it. Metaphorically, that's what incapacity to root cause looks like. And it looks like storytelling, and it looks like severe dysregulation, and it looks like intolerance, and it looks like staying above the line, and it looks like opting out of therapy and not doing DNAs, which is do not attends, and it looks like bouncing around therapeutic processes and trying other things for quicker relief, maybe hypnotherapy so I can get there quicker. That's what it looks like if you don't build capacity. Everybody happy enough with that? Yeah. Good, Sarah. Good woman. I love to see trainees. Good woman. Fantastic. We love trainees, Shelley, don't we? Good. Fantastic. Lovely. And any questions, Sarah, that you have, you ask, all right? Brilliant. Okay. Third, see, you'd have to keep me right. Third is the capacity for symptomatology. Now, what does that mean? This is some big words. So, what my research has shown is that the science of physiology, biology, and neurobiology can explain some of the symptoms of hyperarousal, but not all. What does that mean? It means when we psychoeducate a client, we are missing so many symptoms that they don't understand. Why? Because everybody experiences hyperarousal to a certain extent, but the way that they experience it is phenomenological. What does that mean? It means that it's unique to them. Let me prove that to you. If I asked every one of you, do not answer this if you've got a spiral problem with symptomatology. If I ask those who can answer, where is your first symptom of anxiety? Where does it show? Put it in the chat for me. So mine shows in my shins, chest, tummy, throat, tightness, tummy, bladder, stomach. Brilliant, I love the bladder. Oh, spinal column, love that. Esophagus, beautiful, Gemma. Base of my tummy, not just the tummy, but the base of the tummy. You see the phenomenological nature of symptomatology? Right there. Look at the chat, guys. So, so there's a few there that the basic psychoed on symptomatology would miss. Love that. Raimonda's joints, the top of my stomach. I love that. Joints and the top of my stomach. Nausea, esophagus. Mine's is in my shins. Go find the psychoeducation that explains that. You'll not. Right? So what do we know about symptomatology? We know that symptomatology is unique, phenomenological in nature, has its own unique build, has its own unique, beautiful, Jackie, throat and cheeks, yeah, has its own unique experience, has its own unique, and this is where it gets a wee bit technical, has its own unique metacognition. So the story the mind makes of these body symptoms is unique too. Does that make sense? The story that the mind makes of the symptoms is unique too. We call that the build, right? That's called the anxiety, unique anxiety map, and the way that it builds. Now, why is that important? It's important because everybody's meaning of their symptoms is universally unique to, or it's not universal, it's unique to them, it's phenomenological in nature and needs to be understood phenomenologically for it to be okay, for it to create capacity. Psychoeducation will not work. You might be lucky enough to get a symptom or a meaning that you've psychoeducated and it changes it, but that's luck. We don't want to be working with luck. We want specificity. You want to work in specificity. Why? Because everybody's anxiety story and their symptoms is unique. And therefore, because it's unique, there's different capacities for that symptomatology. This is why, guys, you get people out of their mind about their symptoms, never mind their key or core threats. How many people do you get coming to you saying, get rid of these feelings, get rid of this stuff. I don't care about the core and key threat. Just help me not live with this feeling. Let me know what percentage of your clients are showing up with a get rid of these symptoms vibe and get rid of them quick. Yes, look, watch this. All 90%. Beautiful. Most 90%. 99% most, yes, because this is always, yes, Raimonda, beautiful, most. This is always the first assessment that tells you what you need to do first. We need to control the symptoms. We need to stop them building. We need to stop hoping that psychoeducation is going to soothe them. We need a different intervention for capacity for symptomatology. Now, most of you have told me in this assessment that the first set of interventions that you need to practice is capacity for symptomatology. That would, for some, be enough. Lucilla, I agree. Take away these symptoms and take them away quick. Because who here has personally experienced anxiety or panic? It's horrific. It's, it's absolutely horrific. Awful. So that's why the symptomatology is often the first port of call. But here's the problem. It's the first port of call, but it's not the last. Does it make sense? It's not the last. We do that first. When I teach this, and I'll invite you to join me in our teaching program. When I teach this, the first thing that I teach in this is I teach how to not regulate. We're not interested in regulating. I'm interested in shutting off this build, right? This interoceptive phenomenological build. It's the first thing I teach. It takes 3 modules to teach that. Why? Because I know it's the biggest demand for our client base. Because I know from a practitioner's perspective and from an experiential perspective, the demand on the ground is that you take away these symptoms and take them away quick. Then, and only then, might I have capacity for root cause. But I do not have capacity for root cause under the weight of these symptoms. Tell me if that makes sense. Capacity is, we're going to come to capacity now. Capacity for symptomatology is a full system, and I'm going to explain that tomorrow through a client so that we're not kind of too cognitive about it. Capacity is a whole topic, right? So if your client doesn't have capacity for symptomatology, they will never have capacity for root cause. If they've never capacity for root cause, they'll stay in the upper ends of stages of process and bounce around that top of a triangle because it's the only way to keep themselves safe and continue the regulation and continue their ice baths and continue their breathing techniques and continue all of the regulation tools that they're being taught and their box breath and their mindfulness, which is all good. It's not good. That's all good. But that's where they'll stay. But they'll keep bringing you back stories and asking you for more help. And it's us that feels exhausted. It's us that feels incapable. It's us then that feels like imposters. It's us then that carries the weight of this as the client is bouncing around there because we are trying everything. So now you have 2 people in a room that are feeling dysregulated and unsure about where to go. You see that, Sarah? Yes. And that's normal. That's not normal. Therapeutically, that's not normal, all right? Just know that. But what we're saying is there's a better way to do it, right? You're not on your own if that is what's happening. That we hear that constantly. And Shelley, you'll attest to that in some of the programs. We hear that constantly from therapists. And that's all right. Because we've never been taught this way before. So the last one. Good. I got a wow. We're doing well, Amanda. If we got a wow. Good. The last one that we have before we move to your case study and before we hear this in practice is the capacity for interoception. Now, I have another wee document if you'd like to see that. We will show you what interoception looks like. So interoception is really my thing. It's my stick, right? It's the basis of the PhD. It's the base. the basis of all my work. Interception is the holy grail of trauma care. And used properly, it can create capacity for root cause, it can create access to root cause, but there are very, 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 very few people that have the capacity for what I'm about to show you. Simply because what does trauma do? Trauma severs your interoceptive connections. Trauma blocks your capacity to be in your body. Yeah? Trauma stops all of that. So what we're going to look at is, let me see, where am I? Here I am. Okay. Everybody see that? Okay, so we have the facets of interoception. I'll take you through them, all right? So the facets of interoception are the first and second one are very basic practices. Can my client, and I want you to think about your clients as you do this, can my client bring attention to their bodily sensations? Type in the chat yes or no. What percentage of them? No problem, Denise. Take care. What can your client do? Can they bring attention to these bodily sensations without being dysregulated? Can they report them to themselves? Can they report them to you? You wouldn't believe how difficult that is for trauma survivors. There's a whole problem in detection, because if I detect them and I report them to you, what are you going to do with them? Can I trust that I give them to you and you're okay with them? There's a whole body of work. Some of our clients who have got trauma, who need to be out of their body, have no connection to their body. These clients that have no connection or attention to their body end up in A&E thinking that they've had a heart attack, because the symptomatology's got that bad that it has taken that amount of aggression in the nervous system to bring into their awareness. Does that make sense? How many of your clients do you have there? That's an attention problem. That's a facet of interoception problem. It's a detection problem. Below that is an intensity capacity. I'm not going to get into the details of this, but as we move, I will. Here's a discrimination problem. I love this, and we talk about this in Safe Embodiment a lot. Discrimination. Where do you feel that in your body? We are asking people where they feel something in their body before we've checked if they can have the willingness and attention and detection. Where do you feel that in your body is a super duper advanced question, especially for trauma advisors or survivors. Where do you feel that? How intense is that? What part of your body do you feel that? Any of those magnitude or discrimination questions are advanced questions that in most trauma surviving clients cannot answer. And what do they think? They're doing something wrong. They're not getting it right. Shame themselves. Hopelessness, despair. I'm not even going to go down through these. This is all of the facets. Just to point out that your client usually are in trauma, and in most of our trauma surviving clients, including myself, has very little capacity for the facets of interoception, and are really only beginning to bring awareness. So when we ask big questions in the room, especially of the symptoms, some of our clients can't even articulate those questions. Does that make sense? And look at the depth of the facets here. Accuracy, monitoring them. How does it move? How does it grow? What color is it? What shape is it? What size is it? All of that sensitivity questions. A lot of our clients coming from where they're coming from cannot answer that. Does that make sense to you? So my question to you is, if you let me know in the chat. If you let me know in the chat, my question to you is this. What capacity does your client have for the depth of interoception that I've just showed you? that will help them move into deeper awareness of the problem stages of process and a deeper awareness of the key and core threats, capacity for root cause, that'll help them understand their capacity for symptomatology. What percentage of your clients have all of those facets at hand? Let me know in the chat. None. Yeah. Yeah. Very low anyway. There's a whole, Francis, there's a whole process to this. Massive process to this. Yeah, Shelley. I've never met anybody who comes with. Absolutely. One, Joe. Yeah, get that too. Most probably haven't even got their attention facet. Beautiful. Love it. Love your assessments. Beautiful. And here's the thing. See, after those 4 key components, who do you blame for your clients not getting anywhere? Yourself. Who do you give a hard time to? Yourself. Who do you get annoyed at? Yourself. And that's not fair, guys. It's absolutely not fair. This is a capacity problem, and it's an intervention with capacity problem. We just need to learn how to do it differently and to build it in an order that will help the client. So what I've just shown you there is 4 massive, I mean, I literally could talk about these for weeks. I'm trying to give you an overview so that you can step back and have an assessment. What clarity have you got from that assessment thus far before we get into the case study and before I show you in practice? What clarity do you have, if any? And it's all right not to have clarity, but is there any big takeaways at this stage for your own practice? Let me know in the chat. And whilst you're doing that, yes, stuckness and symptoms will inhibit work. Beautiful. Beautiful, Joe. Delighted. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. You've taken that away from this. I'm delighted. Stuckness and the symptoms will inhibit deeper work, 100%. Anybody else, any takeaways as I pull up our gorgeous client? The pace needs to slow right down, Sarah, but that's really good because that takes pressure off you, your nervous system, and it'll take pressure off the client's nervous system. And then we'll possibly have 2 possibly regulated people in the one room. Slow this down. You can't do this any faster. Oh, brilliant, Kathy. That makes me smile. I have a better idea of why I don't have clarity. Yes, 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 yes. So we have clarity in the fog. A wee bit anyway. Not totally, but we're getting there. Good. That's what we're here for. Yay. Yes. Yeah. How to start working. Yes, we've 3 days, Gemma. I'm going to promise you we'll show you it all, right? That's a particular methodology. That particular working in symptomatology is a particular methodology, and I'll show. Work at the pace of the client and not our work to rush them, Francis. I love it. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, you can keep those coming. So I want to show you a client that I've been working with for about 2 years. This client has done an awful lot of root cause work in another issue, and she was working on root cause work inside a particular issue. The particular issue that she was working on was the experience of being disgusted at. Everybody following me? More compassion for yourself. I'm delighted. That's exactly, Ramanda, what I would love. Compassion and understanding and clarity. That's what I want for you out of this. And a framework to understand what you're doing. And good. So this client, sorry, I get sidetracked there. You see, I get excited when you're learning. I really do. It really excites me that you're learning. This client has been working, has got great stage of process. You'll see her. She's done all her maps and pattern work. What that means, Gemma, is the exact thing that you're talking about. So she can manage the symptomatology of her hyperarousal. She's got down. And now, with all of that capacities that she's built, she's trying now to deepen, right? And you'll see in this, it's a wee 2-minute exchange, but you'll see or hear in this wee 2-minute exchange, she's inviting me into deepening, but what she's doing is for about 2 minutes, she's talking about how grateful she is for having the capacity to deepen and the willingness to deepen. And how she could have never deepened before if it weren't for the symptomatology management, which is everybody here has said that's what their clients need first. So you'll hear this in a client's presentation. Everybody happy enough? Okay, so the video, the audio in this is a wee bit funny, so I'll turn it up so you can listen.
But on Sunday, I had to perform.
So the story behind this goes that she is a performer. So she's a stage performer. She's also a therapist, but she's a stage performer. And she's never been able to perform because of her anxiety. And she has done an awful lot of work in one particular area. And now she's talking about this threat of disgust showing itself in performance. Just want to give you context, and I want you to hear in action. Sorry, guys, just.
The group for the first time, like a solo. So I started to notice my mapping pattern. And to be fair, the worst part of it was just feeling a bit nauseous, like bloated tummy, a bit heavy, a bit sicky. But that's like my symptom for, like, it's still very mild, it's manageable.
Did any hear? I'm going to perform, and I feel anxious. But that was just my symptom 4. She knows her symptoms in order. Manageable, fine, no problem. Do you hear her language? Do you hear her clarity and understanding of her symptomatology? It's like it was like a minute, but it's like,
which I'm thinking actually is really great, because yeah, it's not comfortable, but it's better than it was. It would have taken me all the way into heart pounding, breathlessness, like that top end. So that's really great to already see that when I'm doing this, it's still quite mild, and it's actually, and I'm actually then enjoying it, and it's becoming easier. So that feels brilliant, and it helps obviously to have people around that are really supportive. And it's nothing like college where everyone was really critical and judgmental, so that's nice to have that safe space. So that's
even I think what you're saying here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that you would have interacted with your symptoms would have escalated that in a heartbeat.
And absolutely.
So what you're saying is that there's something threatening to you, but that threat that is out there is showing in maybe 1 or 2 symptoms in your body, but then stopping after that. There doesn't seem to be any deepening of the process in that.
No, it's not exactly. It's not. It's like now I can be really aware of it, and I'm like, oh yeah, my symptom 4's here, no problem. I understand why the tummy's doing that. Makes sense. There's like a real calmness in it. Obviously, it's everyone gets nervous. People have been there years, and they're like, look, we get nervous still. So it's really normal. And so normalizing it and just being able to kind of, again, tolerate a lot of that not be afraid of it, not be scared of it. The mind is so different to how it reacts and responds. So that's just so.
Does everybody hear what she's saying? My mind does not respond the way that it used to this, and so it does not build. And so I have some symptoms of fear because I'm about to perform on a stage. And who doesn't want this? Who doesn't want anxiety when you're about to perform on a stage? It's not a full frontal lobotomy. We're not taking away her limbic system, but she does have control and complete and utter reverence for her physical symptoms. Is everybody clear about that? Can you see that? Now what I want you to watch in that is this, this invite into what is left threatening. Now she moves herself, me and her move towards root cause. We play around in symptoms. She wants to play around for more than I want to, because she wants to be like, I'm delighted with myself. Let me celebrate myself here. And I'm like, oh, I can hear where you're going. You're going to root cause. Let's go. And I get a wee bit excited and kind of do what I'm telling you not to, which is rush anybody. But I know she's got capacity, so I'm excited for her.
Helpful that I love that APP stuff. I really, and clients are doing so well with it. So it's all positive stuff. So thank you. But
there's allowed to be a but.
But there's allowed to be a but. There's the perfectness of the system. But I get anxiety. It's manageable. It's fine. It doesn't go into panic. But I want to understand why I get it. I want to understand what the threat is. Do you see the position that she's coming from in that way? Do you see how different that is? Do you see her natural curiosity? Do you see how she's leaning? And do you see how I'm mirroring her leaning and saying, yeah, but it gets to be a but, that's fine, go ahead. What are we looking at here? Does everybody see that?
But there's a threat active and we want to switch this threat off. Because this isn't just normal performance anxiety, which will be normal. This is something that is signaling a threat.
Yeah. Right.
And
that is understanding root cause. There's someone here, let's find it. And she's like, yeah.
Isn't that gorgeous too? So I can be in control of my symptomatology, but yet I can be inspired to understand what the deeper threat is, and please take me there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the book, isn't it? And I love that, again, that threat system no longer has to kind of watch the panic and for the core wound. It's now no panic. So it's a little bit easier now, which, makes sense and is amazing. Because again, it's allowed me to go back into what I love to do.
Imagine that.
I know it's amazing. It makes me just so happy and emotional, and I'm just so grateful for this work. Because I never would have, if I'd have not found this work, I know for a fact I'd have been old on my deathbed and just regretting not being able to have done any of this. So to say, like, I'm living it and I'm doing it, I'm just so proud of myself, and that feels good also that there's pride that can come in there.
Beautiful.
And actually, like, this sense of I am good enough comes, and that's lovely. But
all the pieces of the work that you've done are coming together. They allow you to do what you're doing, but what you're saying is, and that's part of the work. You're also saying that there's a piece here that seems to be threatening that we want to try and understand and eliminate. You have to do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's there's still that piece there that we're working on, but it's lovely to celebrate everything alongside it and kind of give space and attention to that bit as well, because it's not all negative. That's helping to stabilize me.
Do you hear what she's doing? She's celebrating herself in her newfound experience of her body and in her symptomatology. I'm inviting her and she's saying, yeah, just let's hang around here celebrating me for another wee bit. And I'm saying, come on, let's see. And what we start to deepen into, which you will see later, is we start to deepen into an understanding of the root cause of this, which is the fear of being disgusted at. So that's about to come. So I wanted to show you the lived experience of that so that you can understand how that assessment comes together. I'm going to introduce you to a case study that we're going to start tomorrow, and we're going to take this case study through each of the 4 principles and work out the interventions for the case study. Happy enough? Okay, so our case study that we're going to work with is a 35-year-old woman, sorry, 35-year-old woman. Yeah. And she's a successful CEO. She's presenting with anxiety and panic. And her threats, so her presentation is around the fear of public speaking, the fear that she gets in the boardroom, and the fear of criticism and wrongness. Everybody with me? So her presentation, she's come because she's got panic and anxiety, and she's afraid of public speaking, afraid of board meetings, and afraid of criticism and wrongness, which is very unfortunate given her position as a CEO. Outwardly, everything's good. Inwardly, she is in severe panic mode. And she feels like a fraud. She feels like an imposter. She feels she's near burnout. She feels she can't do this any longer. She feels that a career that she has built for years and years and years and years and years, she wants to walk away from because she cannot tolerate the consistent symptomatology of the experiences that she's getting. She's had a difficult childhood, but that's over now. She has forgiven. She's done an awful lot of pre-therapeutic work on forgiveness, and she forgives, so there is no need to go there. From your, yes, Gemma, I know. Yeah, how many times have you heard that, Gemma, in a room? Yeah. So from that assessment that we did tonight, you can start to place that assessment on this client. What is her capacity for symptomatology? 0. What is her capacity for root cause? 0, because she won't go there. What is her stages of process? Probably 3, but she's still maybe you could move her to 4, but she's still identifying everything outside herself. Yeah. So that's where we finish. Tomorrow, we're going to see how she presents, and we're going to list the interventions that she needs to move. It's like a good Netflix show. The best bits released in the next few days. How does that feel, Lise? We are finished. I've taken far too much of your time. How does that feel, Lise? Good, good, Sarah. Good, 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 Ellie. Good, 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 good. Good, great, fantastic. Good, brilliant, Heather. Good. Okay, great discussion. Good, 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 Yvonne. It was lovely to see you. Good. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to take that case study and we're going to run it through. Now that you have an introduction to those 4 principles, how does that show up? How does the client present? And what do we do here? Happy days? Everybody happy enough for that? All right, I'm going to go and decompress by watching my own Netflix. I will see you tomorrow night, same time, and it may be shorter. One more thing. If that really interested you, that idea of the assessment, we have a really free tool. It's on the website. So if you go to the website, you'll see it. It's called an anxiety tool. And it actually, you can take a client through a series of questions and get results at the end of it on those 4 topics. Leona, will you, have we got that, we got the link for that? Can we put that into the email? Or
yeah, sure. For the score app. Yep, sure. No worries.
Is that all right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's it's an assessment tool that you can use for any client. Just answer certain questions, and it's taken you through all of that. Is that fair enough? And that will support your learning here on the assessment, and it'll allow you to move through your assessment. If you have a tricky client, it'll allow you to do that right away tomorrow. And I'll see you for the integration of that tomorrow night. Happy enough? Great, great stuff. Good, 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 good. Do you know what? No, I don't even have the link. I could have put the link in for you, but we'll send you the link on the email. All right. Much love. Good evening. Thanks for your attention. Thanks to everybody for being here, and I'll see you all very soon. All right. Much love. See you later. Bye.